Hello and welcome to today's episode of Emergency Action Planning Broadcast. Today's special guest is Larisa Harrington. Now, Larisa is an executive well-being coach, a consultant, and a trainer. She helps successful, purpose-driven professionals continue doing meaningful work in the world without sacrificing their health. She trains the best to be better, do better, and feel better so they can expand their impact and feel great while doing it. So, Larissa, sounds like you like people to feel good. So tell me all about that. What brought you to that point? What's this whole feel good thing?
I do. And thank you so much for having me here. I'm so glad we get to have this conversation. And yes, helping people feel better because selfishly, I want people out there contributing to the world. And what I've seen from being in the military for 20 years, from doing this work for over 20 years, is that when people aren't taking care of themselves, when people aren't investing in their health, mentally, physically, emotionally, they're not able to contribute in the way that they need to be. Because even though I'm retired, to me, service is still important. And I believe all of us should be of service every single day. And so if I can do my part to help other people feel their best and take care of themselves while they do their own part to make a positive impact in the world. And I think it just makes everything and everyone better. So that's my
So,
focus.
so you say you see people who just aren't doing better in all the aspects of your life, where health, wealth, relationships, etc. And you see
Yeah.
people probably focus on one and ignore the others. Is that what you're trying to say here?
Yeah, exactly. So think about it, somebody who's, well, we're both in the military. You see people in the military, let's say, they're only focusing on work, 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 and then their
Right.
relationship suffers, their health suffers, and then one day they have a heart attack or something happens, their doctor's like, whoa, you need to do something about this. So then they shift all of their energy into taking care of their health because it was a wake up call for them. But maybe
Right.
they're still neglecting their spouse, they're still neglecting their kids because they're only focusing on this because they let it go so far. And you see that
So,
cycle happening all the
so,
time.
so what would you say is probably, I mean, yes, I'm totally 100% aware and I agree with you, and I've been guilty of it myself, but what is it that brings us to
Mhm.
that point? Why is it that we sort of like, well, I'm going to be the professional at work, but I'm going to be an amateur at home? Or I'm going to be the professional on the baseball field, but I'm going to be an amateur at the day job.
Yeah.
What makes us do that?
Our beliefs.
Our
That's
beliefs?
for me, that's what I see. Like beliefs around what it means to be a good person or what it means to contribute, or people that get so focused in how much money they bring in and think that that's what they need to do in order to be a good spouse. It's like I just have to make a lot of money or I have to lead a lot of people, but they're miserable. Everyone around them is miserable. And so,
Okay.
yeah, from my experience, that's the issue. Yes, culture and other things can play a part, but really it's our beliefs around what we should be doing, what we're supposed to do, and really not being taught how to be able to invest in all of those things. That's not something that people are taught at a young age.
That's quite true. We are not. So when you get an individual, a male, female, a professional, or whoever that comes to you and says,
Mhm.
help me, please, I need help. What do you do? What's the process you take them through? Can you give me a little Reader's Digest version of how you go through this to help them, wake up and do the things that they really want to do?
Yeah. So some of my specialties are mindfulness and emotional intelligence. So when I start working with people, we really start with the mindfulness aspect of it, which is teaching people how to pay attention on purpose in the present moment without judgment. And so when we can start from that foundation of just actually starting to pay attention and asking them those deeper questions around, okay, what is it that you truly desire? What is it that's going well for you? What is it that you're celebrating in your life? What are those things that you want to be different or better? Like helping people get clarity around that is where we start so that we know the direction that we're headed. Because a lot of times, what people say is important to them or what their actions are showing isn't true. And so we
Oh,
start with that
yes.
clarity to
Right.
say, well, what do
So,
you really want?
so how long does it take
Yeah.
to go through? It probably depends on the individual, but just give me an example of one of your past experiences when you're working with this individual. Was it a real wall to bust through for these people to really figure it out? Or did they say, oh, yeah, I know all about it, I'm just not doing it?
I'll say a couple of things. One, I wish that I could just work in the space of prevention, which I know is similar to the work you do, right? Like our life would be so much easier if we were just only focusing on prevention. But
Right.
when people come to work with me, typically they've already had that wake up call where something bad has happened. A
Okay.
spouse has said, I'm going to leave you. The doctor has said, if you don't change, you're going to die. Like something has happened. And so when we're talking about, how long it takes for people to really see the results, it's in the first session is when they get that wake up call because they've already gone through so much
Right.
before actually saying, yes, I want to get help with this thing. And
So,
then sometimes it takes years because there's years of conditioning, decades of conditioning that we have to get through. So it's just layer after layer. So, yes, impact after the first session. And for many people, then it takes a while before they're able to fully be able to live that, mindful, joyous life that they desire because of how long they've been doing things the opposite way.
so it sounds in some ways, and I've heard this in other places, it's sort of like a reprogramming system. We're taking that software we've built into our mind through the course of generations and decades, and we're
Yeah.
rewriting it in some way, shape, or form so the program runs better, right?
Yeah, exactly. For me, it's always about efficiency and effectiveness.
Okay.
Like, how can we help people be more efficient and effective? And that means, like, yes, after the first time people work with me, they see drastic results. And for some people, there's a lot of reprogramming, as you're saying, that needs to happen because
Right.
they realize, wow, this belief that I've been working with isn't actually supporting me in living the life that I want to live. Or this trauma that I've been pushing down and ignoring is actually showing up in my life in all of these different ways. Maybe it's time I heal from it instead of numbing it out with wine
Right.
every night.
Okay, so let me ask you a simple question here.
Mm-hmm.
I like to boil things down to the three basics: health, wealth, and relationships. So we can go
Yes.
much broader than that, but everyone understands those. So when you're dealing
Yeah.
with an individual who wants to fix one of those three areas, is it usually one or more than one? Or do you find people that want to fix everything, or they find that myopic focus because, like you said, the wife or the husband is leaving, you might be losing your job, the doctor said you're going to die, or so how does that usually work?
Yeah. So when people come to work with me, it's normally one area. Most of the
Okay.
time it's mental health thing, right? But I love this saying, like, wherever you go, there you are.
Right.
And even though people are coming for one area of their life, the way that they're showing up is often the same in every area of their life, or they've
That's
been ignoring the fact that these other areas are not doing so great either. But it's
true.
just the wake up call that's like, okay, I have to work on this right now.
Okay. So, in other words, what I hear you saying, which I agree with, you can't fix one thing without fixing everything because
Yes,
the
exactly.
way we are the way we are. And,
Yeah.
we might say, well, I wear a different hat here and a different hat there and a different hat there. Well, that's why you're so screwed up, Lucky. Just do the one hat for all of them, right?
Yes. I re I started I started a long time ago in like the health and fitness space, and then I became a life coach. And then I went to leadership coaching for organizational well-being training.
Okay.
And I was asking the mentor there, I'm like, hey, everything that we're talking about here was basically the exact same stuff I learned when I was training to be a life coach. And she's
Okay.
like, well, yeah, because it's all the same stuff, right? Like you're coming in as an executive coach, but it's still about life. And so I love exactly what you're saying. It's all the same stuff. You might have this as your focus for right now, but I guarantee you that there's other areas in your life that you'd like to improve or a client would like to improve as well, even though they're just coming for this one thing right now.
Okay. So there are benefits to working with you, especially if you recognize that these people have a need to do so, right? So
Yes.
can you give me what's the term I'm looking for? Give me an example. Somebody you've worked with who made such a wonderful breakthrough, and they were just like, okay, now they're pulled themselves out of that rut they've been in. What happened with this person?
Let me think of an example. Okay, I'll say one of my clients is a successful business owner. And when they started working with me, it was mostly just focusing on growing their business.
Okay.
And then as we started doing the deeper work, like we were just talking about, this person realized like how they were showing up in all of the relationships in their life, right? With the people that work for them, so romantic relationships, family relationships. They realized all of the inner stuff that they needed to address because they originally started by focusing on their business. And so
Right.
now I actually just saw this client this morning and we were reflecting back like, hey, look at where you were 2 years ago to where you are now, and all of this deep work and how their business is growing. They've doubled their business, but that's not even like the main thing that they focus on when they talk about the growth that's happened. It's in being able to have better boundaries, better communication, sleeping better. They're doing yoga every day, like all of these other areas in their life. That isn't what they came to work with me for. And yes, I work with business owners and executives and leaderships, but I don't tell people I'm a business coach. Like, that's not my focus.
Right.
But yes, people's businesses will improve because we're working on the whole person.
Well, what you're saying
Yeah.
is they're improving. So if they are improving as an individual, then their whole life should
Hmm.
improve regardless of what the pieces are, right?
Yeah.
All right. That sounds
Yeah.
like fun. So what is the trip here that's going on with most of us people here who can't get that the first time? I mean, we all know deep down inside if we have a problem. We probably know exactly what that problem is. And ideally, we know
Mhm.
exactly what we probably need to do to fix it. So why aren't we?
Mhm. Again, I think it goes back to the beliefs. And when I
Okay.
first started realizing this, so I was at Air Force, and our core values were one of them being service before self, and that being something like that being a core value for all military branches, and a lot of jobs, right? That people have this belief that they are supposed to take care of others before themselves. And so when we have been conditioned to believe that, and that is showing up in our life in every single way, and that we are not taking care of ourselves because we are focused on serving others, caring for others, giving to others, and little by little, we neglect ourselves, and we are intelligent and we know things like self care is important, put your own oxygen mask on first, burnout is bad, go for a walk, eat healthy food, like all of these things that people know. But because the beliefs are still there that other people are more important than them, that's where the problem lies. It's not from a lack of education or intelligence. I only work with really intelligent, successful people. They know these things, but they're not doing them
Right.
because of those underlying beliefs that there's still a part of them believing that other people are more important.
Well,
And if
is
I'm
well,
still able to, I still can.
well, isn't there sort of like an oxymoron going here? It's just like, okay, um, self before service, service before self. So where we look at a real truly professional person as a giver, they help other people all the time. They think about those other people. And so that's not a bad thing,
Yeah.
but somehow we've been ingrained to think only about them and ignore ourselves. So how can we get
Yeah.
that balance? Well, what is that balance so I can be a very good, healthy, fantastic person and give the gift to you? How can we make that happen?
Yeah, changing it to right? That it's not a service before self, it's It's not
Mhm.
care for others or myself, it's and. And when we can start shifting and looking at things in that way, and again, we have to start with the clarity around what is it that I need? What do I need to thrive? How much sleep do I need? What type of food do I need to eat where I'm energized and I feel focused and clear when I'm going through the day? How much movement do I need? What kind of movement is safe for me?
Right.
Right? When we have the clarity on those like basic things, right? I can't tell you how many clients I have where they don't even get up and go to the bathroom during the day because they're so focused on work. They
Oh,
skip
really?
meals or they just eat junk, right? Because they're just so focused on work. So when we can shift it to say, I can take care of other people and take care of myself, everything changes. And so when we address those beliefs, and then how do we not get into that place, but we can still serve and give? It's that we make sure that the foundational stuff is taken care of first. and then create a strategy, set up our life so that we're doing those things and still giving and serving. Because again, I believe we should all be doing that every single day. And a lot of people aren't serving and giving in the way that they desire because they're exhausted, because they're in the hospital,
Because they're
because they're,
exhausted. Yeah. So, well,
yeah.
let me ask you a simple little question here. Men and women are a little different. We know that. And I know the
Mm-hmm,
men are usually generally the focus driven, goal oriented species. And the females are
mm-hmm.
more into the conversation and the giving and the taking and the sharing. In your experience, when you're with your clients, do you see a dichotomy and more males, more females, or is there a balance, or what's going on with that?
Uh, yes, there's a difference. More females come to work with me, but I will say for men, it often shows up differently in that they're more focused on the success being the provider. How can they make more money to take care of others financially, right? I
Right.
often see it showing up more in that way. And they're still neglecting themselves, or a lot of them are like, I'm just going to go out and run every morning, or it's not that they're not working out at all, but they're not doing things in a healthy way because they're neglecting still other parts of health, right? Their
Okay.
mental health, emotional health. And then oftentimes for women, it's showing up like, I can't say no, I have no boundaries. If anybody asks me something, I will do it, whether it's a friend or significant other, or see somebody on the side of the road that needs money or to ride, right? People, they'll just say yes because of
Okay.
their beliefs around what it means to be a good person.
And a lot
So
of
it
this
still
is
shows up as
probably
exhaustion.
right.
Yeah,
So we're still damaging ourselves, even though our interior motives for doing it are somewhat different, but we're still
yeah.
creating problems for ourselves. So what can we do moving forward? You see, my big concern is our children and the future of the world. And
Mm-hmm.
how do we take these parents, these business people, these industry leaders, these people that several others look up to, and make sure they're given the right message so that our children will get that right message now as they're growing up, so we don't have to sit with them for 2 or 3 years and fix what's broken? Can we do that now? Is there a way we can make this happen?
Yeah, definitely. And I love the work that you do, Daniel, and focus it and being on the children. And one of the things that we as adults can do is take care of our own stuff, like do that inner work so that we're not
Mhm.
passing it to our children, whether, we're talking about passing it to our children and that we're an a-hole to them because we are exhausted and don't have patience and aren't showing up in the way that we want, but also so that we're not modeling that same behavior,
Right.
right? When we think about, yes, I would love if every school had, a focus on emotional health and communication and boundaries and all of these different things. But we as parents can do our part in having those conversations and being able to communicate effectively and being able to say, hey, I made a mistake, or hey, I need to take care of myself right now. And so I think for us, that's the simplest thing that we can do, is
Okay.
just
So
changing how we're showing up.
I've heard you use a term repeatedly, communications. So
Mm-hmm.
it sounds to me it's a lot about how we talk to ourselves and how do we talk to the world around us. And you've mentioned that
Exactly.
sometimes there are two different messages that we're giving. So the bottom line is communications at all essences. As a leader, we need to be able to communicate our intent. We need to be able to communicate what we want to have happen. And the listener, the receiver, needs to understand it. So when you're dealing with your people, do you start with that internal communication and then push it to the outside communication? Or do you do work on both of them at the same time?
We work on both of them at the same time. And I'm so glad that you're bringing that part of it up because, yes, it's so important because often people's self talk is so
Right.
negative, right? And they
Yeah.
don't realize how that is then causing them to show up for others. Or they
Right.
don't realize that when they are exhausted, how their lack of patience, lack of empathy is showing up for other people. And they're like, I just want to be a good leader. I just want to be a good parent. And so then people are going to bed with a lot of regret and shame and guilt because they are not taking care of themselves, because they're not regulated emotionally, right? Meaning that they're like flying off the handle about stuff, getting angry. Like it often shows up as like anger for men and women,
Right.
that it's showing up but it's really the deeper things that are underneath that's creating the anger. And oftentimes it's not anger about what they're acting angry about.
So, if our listeners, I'm fairly certain that some of our listeners are going, "Oh, that makes sense to me. I can point my finger right at that one. Boom, bingo." So, are there any tools, any
Mhm.
things that they can do right now without having to go call somebody, without getting permission, without going and re-educating themselves? Is there something they can do right now to start making that shift and that change in their life?
Yeah, I think right now, an easy first step, maybe not easy, but a first step, it can be uncomfortable for people, is to really get clear on where you are in your life. So I often will use the wheel of life. You talked about health, wealth, and relationships. It can start that simply. Okay, how satisfied and fulfilled am I in this area of my life?
Right.
Right. Or if you want to make it broader than those three, you can think about, finances, mental health, other areas, but just doing a self assessment to say, how satisfied and fulfilled am I? Am I showing up in the way that I desire? Am I creating the legacy that I desire? Getting clear on that and then saying, okay, if the answer is no, it's not about judgment or feeling like a failure. It's saying, okay, this is one thing that I can start with, right? Maybe
Okay.
I'm just going to start with my relationship. I'm just going to start with having dinner with my family and not being on my phone, right? The little things matter. And I love this idea of like the 1% better every day. And
Mhm.
so when we think about just the 1%, and not that we have to change our whole life all at one time, because you're not going to be successful if you try to change every single thing in one day because you get inspired by a call. It's not going to work. But
Right.
what's one small thing that you can do when you're making sure that it's aligned with what you truly desire?
So, do you recommend doing this in a contemplative, meditative state, or, well, we should all do that anyway, but, or should we actually document what we're doing? Should we actually put it on paper and say, this is where I'm at? We take those three things, and here's the plus, the
Yeah.
good, the bad, the indifferent, and that gives us a tool to look at.
Yeah. So I find that there's a lot of benefit. And when I guide people through doing it from a meditative state and then putting it on paper, but a
Okay.
lot of people, especially the people I work with, the meditating is hard for them. They're full of anxiety and thoughts, and they're like, I can't do this. So I'm not going to say, hey, this is simple and easy, go meditate and then write this stuff down. So I'd say, starting off, if it's somebody who's listening to this podcast right now and they're like, yes, I'm inspired, I want to do one thing, make a list of the important areas of your life, however many that is for you, and then rate each one. How satisfied and fulfilled am I in each of these areas? And then pick one thing that you can start with from that
Okay.
one list.
So I call it the MIT, all right, most important thing. Find out what your most important thing is, right? And just get on it.
Yeah,
Well, that's fantastic.
yeah,
So now, if people wanted to reach out to you and seek you for some guidance or information, how could they possibly do that?
yeah. So my name, LARISAHARRINGTON.com. And you can find me on all the social media platforms or my website, LarisaHarrington.com, and reach out. And I work with organizations on leadership, particularly around burnout, recovery, and prevention, communication,
Okay.
emotional intelligence, or for individuals.
Now, I noticed that you have this real wonderful free gift for people. So, about a 10-minute meditation. Can you tell me about that? And where would people go to find it?
Yeah. Yeah. So for people who want to meditate, but they're like, I can't meditate on my own, can you drop the link for them as a
Yes, I
part of
will.
this
I'll make
podcast?
sure.
Or,
Yes, I'll
oh,
make
okay.
sure they have it in somewhere written down so people can get to it. Yes.
Perfect. So Daniel will put it in there, and it's just a 10-minute meditation on reducing anxiety and increasing peace. And it's a really great way to either start your day or as like a midday break to help slow down and get clear. Because a lot of times when we think about self-care, people say, I don't have time.
Right.
And self-care doesn't have to take a long time for it to be impactful. So you can even listen to like 2 minutes of it and it could
Right.
still be beneficial.
So you could throw that thing right on your phone. You got your earbuds in at work. You just sit
Yeah.
back, take that deep breath, turn it on, and chill for a few minutes, and then get back to work. Right?
Exactly. Because instead, a lot of people are just like scrolling on social media or doing other things, and they're like, I don't have time for self care. Like, you do have time.
Yeah.
What are you doing with that time?
So Larissa, tell me, we've covered a lot of stuff. Is there anything we haven't touched on? Is there anything that you would like to express to people? Anything going on that you would like to promote, or what's happening?
Um, yeah, I think we've touched on it, but I just really want to reiterate it. Check your beliefs, right? Notice where your beliefs are maybe supporting you or where they're not supporting you, and see if when we're talking about taking care of self and taking care of others, does that actually feel possible for you?
Right.
Or are you doing the things that you say you want to do? Because most people, that's where they realize like there's a disconnect. When you say
Mhm.
you want to do something, but then you don't follow through, instead of blaming or falling into like the shame and guilt around it, just recognize that. And that's where the mindfulness piece comes in. Paying attention on purpose without judgment. Don't judge yourself, but pay attention to those things. And you think about how you want to show up. I know you have a lot of parents that listen to this. How do you want to show up as a parent? What is it that you want to model to your kids, to people in the community? How do you want to be around for them? Right? Your health is
Right.
important. It's not about just this short term, oh, I don't have time for it because these other people or other things are important. No, your health matters, and we can't control everything, but there's a lot that we can influence in our lives. And so make sure that you're investing in the right things, and it starts with you getting really clear on what those right things are.
So more people might not know it, but they have more control over their life than they think they do. Is that what you're saying? That's right.
Yes,
All right.
definitely.
So grab onto it, folks. Grab onto it. Be the person you want to be. Might take a day or two, but you can do it, right? All right.
Yes.
Well, Larissa, I want to thank you very much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us. And for all of you listening, contact information, the link to the meditation will be down below or on the side or above, somewhere around this video. And if you're listening to the podcast, it's still going to be in the show notes anyway. All right. So this is Daniel with Emergency Action Planning and the wonderful, beautiful Larissa Harrington, who loves to help people be better. Thank you, Larissa. You take care and have a wonderful day.
Thanks so much.